Here's your current events in less than 10. The big winner of Tuesday's primary races is someone who wasn't even on the ballot, Zohran Mamdani, and it's already starting some major drama in the Democratic Party. New drugs have been approved to replace chemo for aggressive breast cancer diagnoses. Donald Trump refuses to sign the housing bill that Congress just passed, unless Congress first passes the voter suppression bill that he's been pushing for years. Donald also got into a shouting match with a Republican senator on Capitol Hill yesterday. Pete Hegseth continues to purge military commanders, and our president invited the head of NATO to the Oval Office yesterday, where he rambled about cutlery and the reflecting pool. I'm Sammy Sage, and I want you to know what the is going on without having to follow every little thing. Subscribe and turn on notifications to get morning announcements right when it comes out every day. Pharmaceutical companies AstraZeneca and Gilead have received FDA approval for a new type of drug that would replace chemo to treat aggressive breast cancer. Trodelvy can be used as a first treatment for patients who are newly diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, which affects over 48,000 Americans a year and has typically been resistant to existing treatments. A little science lesson here. Trodelvy is categorized as an antibody-drug conjugate, which is a type of targeted therapy that uses an antibody to identify a protein that's found on triple-negative tumor cells, and it's been shown to reduce cancer progression by 40% compared to chemo. Science is just the best. Why would you ever defund it? Now on to the drama. Primary election results from Tuesday. Every candidate endorsed by Zohran Mamdani won, and now the Democratic Party is scrambling on what to do next and having a big ol' freakout. Here's what happened. Zohran Mamdani endorsed 3 candidates from the DSA, 2 of which ran against incumbent Democrats who currently have seats in Congress representing city districts, and all 3 of the Mamdani-endorsed candidates won. New York City Comptroller Brad Lander defeated Congressman Dan Goldman, Darya-Liza Avila Chevalier beat the current chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Congressman Adriano Espaillat, and in the case of the 3rd candidate, Claire Valdez, she won the primary for a seat where Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez isn't running for re-election. Fox News is going to have a fucking field day with those 3. The reaction to these wins was swift. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who was one of Mamdani's earliest endorsers, called out Mamdani on CNN for supporting individuals who, quote, do not understand the politics of New York City, the cultural differences from district to district, who have not been part of the history and the struggle of some of these districts, and are relatively new to the body politic. All of us are a little frustrated with the Democratic Party, but don't blow it up. That's what MAGA has done. Former DNC chair Jaime Harrison, who was probably never going to see eye to eye with Mamdani, let's be real, tweeted, quote, I say this with no ill will or animosity. If you hate the Democratic Party, then please don't run for our nomination. Don't use our resources, don't rely on our volunteers, don't use our infrastructure. Don't ask Democrats to invest their time, money, and energy in your campaign. Focus on building the party you actually support. While that post did not add anyone in particular, Zohran Mamdani tweeted a captionless post with a clip of Jalen Brunson at the Knicks parade the other day, saying, quote,
there's a lot of people that have a lot of negative stuff to say. There's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions. But when you prove them wrong, you really don't have to say shit to them.
Another widely watched race on Tuesday was the Democratic primary to replace Congressman Jerry Nadler, in which Nadler's chosen successor, Micah Lasher, was victorious over a huge field of candidates, including Jack Schlossberg and George Conway. There's also a swing district in the Hudson Valley that Democrats hope to win in November, which is currently held by Republican Congressman Mike Lawler. Lawler's Democratic opponent this November will be Army combat veteran Kate Conley, an MIT and Harvard graduate who previously served as a national security advisor in Biden's administration. Tough resume to argue with. And I don't even know what to do with this one. But Donald Trump endorsed 2 people in the Republican primary for the South Carolina governor's race, and one of them won. It seems like this may have been something of a cover your ass move, as the candidate he endorsed first, over a month ago, ended up losing, and the one that he endorsed second, like the other night, ended up winning. So it seems like maybe he didn't want us talking about how he was losing his touch with endorsing candidates. But here we are. Maybe ask your friend Mamdani for some advice on how to pick better. Of course, if Donald Trump can't win, he can always cheat. He admitted during a rally in Pennsylvania on Tuesday night that he called up federal prosecutors in California a few weeks ago to inquire about the results of the California governor's primary.
I called up the very powerful, very good U.S. attorney in California, and I said, do me a favor, take a look. They're trying to steal that election, too. About an hour after the call, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hilton has won. So had I not made that call, Steve Hilton would right now be watching the election from home.
So when Trump and Spencer Pratt were saying that the election was rigged, was this what they're talking about? Of course, if cheating doesn't work, Donald can always throw a tantrum. Remember how Congress made the rare move on Tuesday of passing a bipartisan bill to attempt to lower housing prices? They were all set up for a big signing ceremony on Capitol Hill where Donald was going to sign with his big fat Sharpie yesterday, when he posted on his little social media app that the event is canceled. He won't sign the housing bill, which the White House itself negotiated, unless Republicans pass the SAVE Act to overhaul voting laws before the midterms in order to make it harder to vote by mail or without proof of citizenship documents, or if you're a married woman who changed her name but doesn't have her passport, among other stealthy provisions. But instead of a signing ceremony, the president showed up to the Republicans' private Senate lunch and got into a screaming match with Senator Bill Cassidy over the fact that he, and a few others, voted against the Iran war yesterday. They reportedly got into it, and Bill Cassidy reportedly called him brother, to which Donald replied, "I'm not your brother." You guys are such squares. So pathetic. Anyway, from the Senate over to the House of Representatives, where Speaker Mike Johnson is the greatest cuck of all time. And by that I mean biggest, not the great, whatever. Shortly after Donald's tantrum, Johnson said he's going to push the SAVE Act through Congress using another budget reconciliation bill, which would only require 50 votes to pass the Senate, avoiding the filibuster. And if you're wondering why Johnson didn't just do this before, it's because that's not what budget reconciliation is for, so it's not clear that this will even work. But I think we all know that this is really about soothing the baby for a few hours, so let's just shh. Mike Johnson isn't the only person who can't help but cover himself in glory in the presence of dear leader. Donald hosted NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte yesterday for one of those side-by-side armchair Oval Office meetings, which Rutte used to kiss Donald's ass, and Donald used to rant about his imaginary foes who took a box cutter or a very sharp razor to cut up the reflecting pool.
They took razor blades 350 feet. Coming from where he comes, they don't do that. They took, maybe a little bit. They took razor blades and knives, and they cut patches like that, 350 feet long. A lot of them are like a foot. They cut the lining.
No, you're not dreaming. We are really on day 4 of the 80-year-old president insisting that someone has cut a pool. Pete Hegseth is speedrunning beating Stalin at purging military commanders. A highly respected 4-star general who headed the army in Europe and Africa, General Christopher Donohue, is stepping down from his post, which is reportedly something of a political decision, as there has been tension between Donohue and Pete Hegseth's office. This comes as Hegseth's Pentagon has been pulling troops out of Europe, because apparently it doesn't seem to matter how hard the head of NATO kisses Donald Trump's ass. The United States is not going to make its military policy towards Europe any better for it. And while this is not an abrupt or sudden decision, Donohue's departure is notable because he was considered to be on an ascendant trajectory until Pete Hegseth decided he needed more pliant and loyal people in these top positions. Because, I will have you know, there are reportedly more personnel changes in this vein expected to come as soon as next week. And finally, I talk about enough bullshit IPOs on this show, but today we have something a little more retro. The Italian tech company Bending Spoons is planning to raise almost $1.4 billion for a US-based IPO valued at $19 billion. Bending Spoons is the parent company of businesses like Vimeo, WeTransfer, AOL, and Eventbrite, as their business model involves acquiring and operating digital software companies. And from what I can tell, they don't require like $1 trillion worth of semiconductor chips from Taiwan, as well as the water allotment of a large county in order to maybe operate sometimes. Until tomorrow, I'm Sammy Sage, and now you know what the is going on. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, and of course, tell all of your friends about this show.